Okay, so today we're going to go over first right of refusals. I have two different first right of refusals depending on what board you're a part of out of our main offices. So either you're part of Elite and the Gora board, or you're part of Heartland, and I know you can be HCAR or GLAR. We're going to go over the HCAR version of the first right of refusal today. So without further ado, let me share my screen, get my documents pulled up here. Okay, so contracts training, first right of refusal. So first, just so everybody knows, with this video, you also receive a outline of what is the first right of refusal, each section like explaining what it is, as well as instructions on how to complete. So just wanted to let everybody know that'll be, check your email whenever we send this out, and we'll go over all of that stuff as well. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump in. I'm going to start with the GORA contract, which is the first right of refusal for Greater Owensboro Realtor Association. So what a first right of refusal is it's really a document that where if you're representing, well, I guess it doesn't matter who you represent. It's basically where somebody's making an offer on the listing and they have a contingency. And usually that contingency is they need to get their home sold in order to buy this next home. And the home is usually not under contract at this point. They're getting ready to put it on the market. Well, this is a document that allows you to negotiate with that purchaser and to actually put the home under contract with that particular buyer, but still market the home. That means that it stays active in the MLS. That means that you have the ability to continue to market the home and to oops, let me move that around a little bit. Sorry. To be able to market the home, and then to also, what's it look like for that buyer to move forward? Meaning, what do they have to do? Okay, so that's the general gist of it. So basically, to fill this form out is three different parts. So you have the first part that explains what are we filling out and why. We have the second part, which is once we fill this out, we've negotiated it, and the seller is continuing to market their home, they get another offer, meaning that somebody else decides to write an offer on the home. They negotiate that offer out, and at this point, they need to notify purchaser one that purchaser two has came in, made an offer, they've negotiated it, and now purchaser one has certain amount of time to be able to remove this contingency, which basically means they need to get their home under contract, they need to secure a bridge loan, figure out some way to be able to buy this home and remove this contingency within the time frame that we set in the first part. Or if not, they're going to have to basically move forward, like purchaser one's contract is now void, and the seller is going to move forward with purchaser two. Part B is notification to the sellers that purchaser one has now the ability to buy the home without that contingency. So if that happens, they fill out part B. And as I walk through the steps of this, that'll kind of make more sense. So how do you fill this document out? All right, first and foremost is the addendum is to purchase the contract, real estate located at, you're going to simply put in the address. So this is the address that purchaser one is looking to buy. So 123 Main Street. Executed undersigned purchasers and sellers on the date of the contract. Now, I'm going to stop right here. One thing is that for this to be part of the contract, it needs to be noted in the actual offer that this is subject to a first right of refusal. So you actually need that contingency in the offer, and then this is the document that explains how that contingency works. So don't forget that part. Don't forget to put it in the actual offer. Then we're going to put the date of the contract here. And then it goes on to say that it is agreed and understood between the undersigned purchasers and sellers that the property will continue to be marketed and listed for sale. So this makes sure the buyer and the seller both understand that we're going to keep marketing this property. We're going to keep looking for a buyer or seller until purchaser one has the ability to perform. Okay, so then the next paragraph, this is where we're going to have to give how much time purchaser one has to be able to buy the property when purchaser two comes in with an offer. So in the event a seller receives a subsequent offer to purchase the property, which sellers have conditionally accepted in writing, seller shall notify the purchaser of same, and purchaser shall have X number of hours. You'll fill in the hours. We typically see 48 here. From such notification to either waive or remove the contingency of sale and perform at the previous agreed upon terms, sales price and terms. So this is 48 hours. It's not 48 business hours unless you clarify that. It is 48 hours, which means if you write in 48 hours and you send this over, at 10 a.m. on a Friday, then that means 10 a.m. on a Sunday. If the purchaser one has not removed this contingency, then the original purchase contract is null and void. They're going to move forward with purchaser two. So I just like to clarify that. And 48 hours isn't a hard rule. You can do 72 hours. You can do really any time frame that you want inside of here. We just typically see 48. Okay. Next thing is this next paragraph is sellers will notify the purchasers of any acceptable offer using the notification to purchasers in Part A of this form. So this means the seller has received a second offer from purchaser two. They've negotiated that out, and now we need to let the purchaser one know we have a second offer, and your time frame that we filled out in this first paragraph is now starting. So you can see then for that to happen, we would come down to Part A. To the two would be the seller's name, the purchaser's name. The purchaser's name's here because it's notice to purchaser. What the date and time is that we're notifying them, and it's to say that the undersigned sellers have received an acceptable offer to purchase the real estate property located at purchaser's address. And then it says pursuant to that, basically you have the time frame, you can see right here, contingency with the period agreed to in the first right of refusal. So it's referencing this time frame that we put in this paragraph, so the 48 hours. Addendum by notification, you have to kick it out by giving the notification to sellers that you're removing it. Time is of the essence. That means that you only have the time frame that we put inside of this contract. Now, the closing must in turn must occur within the time frame on the contract. We'll address that here in a second. Failure to remove or waive the contingency identified in the first right of refusal or kickout clause in that time will mean the purchase contract is null and void and your earnest money will be returned to you. So this is saying purchaser one was not able to remove the first right of refusal. So in the 48 hours, now it's automatic that is that contract's void. You still do need to fill out a release, but this does state it is now contract removed and the earnest money will be returned to that purchaser one because it's no fault of their own that they couldn't perform. Okay, so that's what that section was talking about with section one. So, and then it goes on to say up here that the seller's agent will note the date and time of notification to the purchasers and sellers, and purchaser agrees to abide by the date and time recorded by the seller's agent. So it is the time that you record on this. That's why you fill out this part of the date and time. Now, we do need to communicate properly, obviously send it over to them in a timely manner. Basically, as soon as it's signed, send it over to them, things like that. But it is not the time frame that the seller's agent, or excuse me, the purchaser two agent purchaser one receives this. It's not when they receive it, it's not when they acknowledge it. It's literally when this gets filled out. And then we need to make sure we notify them immediately, obviously. And then from there, one of two things happen. So we fill this out, we notify the seller or the purchasers that we have received a offer that we're ready to move forward with. Now, one of two things happens. Either the purchaser figures out how to buy the home by removing the contingency. If they do that, they fill out section B, or they don't. And if they don't, then after 48 hours, that time frame's up, then at that point, this contract's null and void. The seller can move forward with purchaser two. If they do figure it out, they get their home under contract, they get a bridge loan, they do something that allows them to move their home, then we would fill out Part B, notification to seller, which is obviously you're going to put in the seller's name, the date and time, and then it simply says, this is to notify you that the purchaser removes the contingency identified in this clause and amends the contract to move forward at, and then put in the purchaser's address, and then everybody signs it. Now, once you remove that, and that's what this next paragraph is about, once you remove that, then we have to set a closing date. So the purchasers agree to close on the date stated below. This date shall supersede any original date if any established to the contract and purchase real estate. This is the one big difference in the GORA contract and the HCAR contract that I'm going to go over in a second, is this one allows you to basically reset the closing date. So you would put in here, closing date's going to happen by January 15th, 2025 or whatever it is. And then everybody would sign any further conditions that need to go in place. So if it was still contingent upon the successful close of a property, for example, or something like that, then you could fill that out. Or if there was, any other contingencies that might have got put in place, everybody signs, and then we get the ability to move forward, right? So it's a kind of a confusing document because the way it sounds, just to summarize it and keep it really quick before I go over HCAR, if somebody is looking to buy a home and they need to sell their home first, this is the document that you're going to use, because the seller's not going to want to remove their property from the MLS and from being listed for sale until they know that this purchaser has the ability to perform. So it allows the purchaser time to get their home on the market and to try to find a suitable buyer for it. And it also allows the seller to continue to market the home and look for other purchasers in case this person can't sell their home. That's kind of the way I would summarize it as fast as possible. But again, we have detailed instructions on how to fill this out. And then, oh, I did not mean to close that. So let me come in here. I'll open it here real quick. Oh, there it is. HCAR first right of refusal. Okay, so this is the HCAR version. The HCAR version, I actually like the HCAR version better. I'm not gonna lie, mostly because it's simpler. So when I'm looking at the HCAR, it's a one-page document instead of two. I like one-page documents. It just makes it easier and less confusing. But this basically operates in the same way, just slightly different format. Here at the very top, you're going to fill out the addendum amidst the contract to purchase real estate located at. This is going to be your address. And then here is executed on the buyer or seller. This is your contract date. So first one is the property address, second one's contract date. Then it has these basically 7 things that it says. So the first one is that the contract contains one or more contingencies that must be met before the buyer can perform on the contract to closing. That's why we're doing the first right of refusal. Number 2 is the buyer agrees that the seller may continue to market the property. So that, again, just like the GORA form, it makes it clear that the seller is going to continue to look for buyers. Number 3, if the seller receives a subsequent offer before the buyers remove the contingency, seller may accept the subsequent offer subject to the buyer's first right of removing the first right of removal, which means the seller can again market the home. They can also accept buyers contingent upon the first right of removal being signed. Number 4, sellers must notify the buyers of any acceptable offer using the notification by sellers in Part A of this form. Same way the last one worked. This is Part A here. And then number 5, undersigned buyers have the right to remove all contingencies, but must notify the sellers of their actual removal within X number of hours. So here's where you're setting the time frame. So this is where the 48 hours is going to go, or whatever hours that you use. And then this is also letting them know that you'll fill out Part B at the point that we are removing this contingency. Should the buyers fail to deliver on the notification, including all addendums, then this contract shall be null and void and the earnest money shall be returned. So same thing with the GORA. You get your money back if you can't sell your house, basically. Time is of the essence. That's always, keep in mind on contracts, just a side note, if it doesn't say time is of the essence, then that doesn't mean you need to hit the exact times. It has to actually state time is of the essence. So for example, the GORA purchase agreement does not say time is of the essence anywhere in that contract. If you don't actually write it in the further conditions, then as long as both parties are making a diligent effort to move forward, then you don't really have to abide by the contract times. Just a little footnote that a lot of people don't know. So you're going to feel this is the rules of engagement, so to speak. Everybody's going to kind of go ahead and sign this at this point. Now, same flow. Part A, whenever the sellers receive a offer from purchaser 2 that they're willing, that they accept contingent upon being removed from purchaser 1's contract, they're going to fill this out, and that's when it's going to kick off this time frame that starts up here, so the 48 hours. Then at that point, the buyers can remove the contingency by filling out Part B, or they can, not remove it. The 48 hours goes up, and then we're no longer under contract. But there is one thing that I wanted to note, one big difference between these two contracts. See this bottom line? I know it's highlighting too, but this bottom line, we agree to close on or before the closing date identified in the purchase contract. So if the closing date you put in the purchase contract is January 15th, and we hit January 10th, and the buyers just now remove this contingency, they still have 5 days to close, which obviously is, in short of a cash deal, not going to happen. So you would need to do an addendum to extend the closing date. I just wanted to call out that one difference depending on which form you're using. The GORA form allows you to change the closing date inside the form. The HCAR form does not allow that. You would need to do a separate addendum in order to be able to fill out that contract. So, and again, just as a reminder, we do have all of the instructions that will be emailed out with this. I'm just going to show you that again real quick. Contracts training, first right of refusal. Here we go. Okay, so again, here's the HCAR instructions. It explains what the document is used for, what each section in the document means, and then the actual instructions for what do you put inside of each line and how do you have to fill this out. Now, with that being said, this is probably one of the most confusing documents that we use because if it's your first time ever using it, the flow of it, like it's even hard for me to explain. It doesn't quite make sense. So what I want you all to do is if you ever need to use this document, please reach out to me first and let's walk through it. Let's talk through it together. Let's make sure that we have our dates in alignment. And that doesn't matter which side you're on. So even if you have the listing and somebody's writing you an offer with a first right of refusal, I still want to talk to you about it because if a second person writes you an offer, remember, we're allowed to accept that offer, but we need to put contingencies in that second offer that is subject to the first offer being removed, basically the first right of refusal being removed. So this is a really great tool that allows people to buy homes that still have a home to sell without it already being under contract and kind of outlines what that looks like. But again, it can be a little bit confusing. So please reach out to me if you have any questions. And then I'll stay on and answer. If you happen to have any questions right now, I'll answer those. And if not, we'll wrap up this recording. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.